Caribbean under canvas, sailing from St Lucia to Grenada. In January 2022, I left behind grey and cold London and flew 4,000 miles across the Atlantic to the Caribbean, landing in sunny St Lucia. As we descended towards St Lucia's Honora airport, the island's emblems, the Piton Mountains, could be seen out the left-hand side. The purpose of the trip wasn't just about soaking up Caribbean sunshine, but it was also to get on the water. I first started sailing about 12 years ago, learning on Wayfarer dinghies on Greenland Dock in southeast London, before moving on to helming boats in the Blind Nationals on the River Orwell in Suffolk. But the call of yachting with slightly more comfort was too strong, and I moved on to sailing in places like Scotland, Cornwall, and off the northeast coast of Mallorca. Back to St Lucia. At the start of the trip, I deliberately scheduled in some time for relaxation before being crammed on a boat with 6 other people. I booked myself a tour with Islandman Taxi to travel down the west coast of the island from Castries, the capital, to Soufrière, which was the previous French capital of the island and known for its views of the Petit Piton mountain and the famous drive-in volcano. It was then time to join our 43-foot Beneteau Oceanus yacht, Silly Shark, seen here, anchored at Marigot Bay. And here's me with a little tour. So welcome aboard Yacht Silly Shark. We're in Marigot Bay. Thought I'd give you a quick 60-second tour of the boat. So coming down into the saloon here, we have heads here with a shower. And there is an equivalent one on the starboard side. I shall show you my cabin. So this is the aft port cabin, in which I'm taking up lots of space with my luggage because I can't pack light. But that's basically it. There's a bit of storage over this side. Seating area over here. There's storage underneath the sofa and things there. As usual, the galley's never amazing on charter boats. We have one ring working out of 2 on there, and lighting it is a pain, and then just a big sort of cool box thing over here that doesn't get very cool. But you know, it's an okay space for what we've got here. I won't go into the other cabins, but just to show you that down here there is a sort of standard side cabin with bunks, and there's a 4-peak cabin as well, and that is Silly Shark. The first few days of the charter were all about getting to know the boat and getting used to being in St Lucia, including its rather idiosyncratic weather. We then spent about 5 days pootling, I'm not sure if that is a nautical term, about the west coast of the island, between Rodney Bay in the north and Soufrière in the south, getting to know the boat and how she sailed, and trying to avoid getting run down by the occasional cruise ship. We also started to get the hang of life in the Caribbean, from gorgeous sunsets every evening to morning swims in some wonderful locations and in gorgeously warm water. Sailing is an incredibly tactile experience. The heel of the boat and the feel of the wind can all help a visually impaired person to sail with a level of independence that they might not experience in everyday life. But sometimes we all need a bit of a helping hand, which is where the audio compass comes in. This is Eddie Kitchen at the helm of silly shark, and Eddie is steering based on the beeps that you can hear in the background. That one is telling him that he's veering off slightly too much to starboard. As it gets quicker, it means he's getting further and further away from the course, so he then turns the wheel to port gently to take it back, listening for when it goes silent, meaning he's back on course. And then the port one is now beginning to beep, telling him he's gone slightly too far that way, and so he tries to correct it back to the middle. Eddie is brilliant at doing this, really good at keeping it as close to the middle as possible. It's quite tricky to do. I really struggle with it. After a couple of days in Soufrière, taking in more and more views of the Piton Mountains, because you can never have too many, we headed north once more, back to Rodney Bay, to begin the second part of the trip, and in some ways the most challenging bit of it. Having cleared out with customs the night before, we were up bright and early on Saturday the 5th of February, ready to leave behind Rodney Bay and to motor north and east across the top of the island. Before turning south, now with the sails up to take advantage of the wonderful winds blowing in across the Atlantic, so that we could sail down the east coast of the island, heading, again in theory, for St Vincent and the Grenadines. This is the journey so far today. We left Rodney Bay at 6 o'clock this morning in the northwest of the island. We sailed around Pigeon Island and then north, and then turning south-east-ish to get around the northernmost parts of the island. However, as is often the way when sailing, there wasn't enough wind and we didn't make the progress anticipated. This is the southernmost tip of St Lucia, and we found ourselves passing by the airport at the southern end of the island on our way back to, yes, you've guessed it, Soufrière and the Piton Mountains. Albeit, this time with a certain level of satisfaction, having now sailed right the way around the island of St Lucia. The next morning, we headed straight for St Vincent and the Grenadines. After all, we weren't actually meant to be still in St Lucia after 4 p.m. the day before. A channel some 30 miles wide separates St Lucia and St Vincent, so it was a bit strange so far out to find ourselves sailing parallel and quite close to another yacht. With some pretty exhilarating sailing along the way, our course took us across the channel separating the two islands, past the volcano at the northernmost tip of St Vincent, which erupted quite famously last April, and then down the west coast of the island to a bay just short of the capital, Kingstown. It was a lovely spot to spend the night as we transited St Vincent and the Grenadines, even if we did spend a good chunk of it worrying about the well-documented pirates said to lurk in many of these bays. Thankfully, we survived the night unscathed and set off early the next morning, heading southwest again, this time for Carriacou, the northernmost major island in Grenada. Whilst the Caribbean is generally known for its calm waters, the wind would regularly gust up to 30 knots or more in between the islands. This is Union Island in St Vincent and the Grenadines. After a full day's sail, we finally crossed the 3-mile strait that lies between Union Island in St Vincent and the Grenadines and Carriacou in Grenada. Here we stayed for 2 nights, providing time to head to the shore by dinghy, to stock up on provisions, and importantly, to clear in with customs. A bit of a story in itself. We then headed round the headland to the obviously named and rather textbook tropical island, Sandy Island, for swimming, generally relaxing, and in my case, building a sandcastle. Our final full day of sailing dawned, well, much like the UK in January actually, grey, windy and wet. But thankfully it improved, and we enjoyed a fine day of sailing southwest towards the capital of Grenada, St George's, carefully avoiding an underwater volcano along the way. And that was pretty much it. We spent a final night anchored in a lovely little bay just north of St George's, had a final swim in the sea, and cooked a final meal on board before heading into St George's to refill fuel and complete the paperwork and finally hand back the yacht.